When I was 3, my aunt and my grandmother had a bet that I was going to be gay. But really, it was more that I was a tomboy. I had a bowl cut when I was in 4th grade. I played with the boys at recess. I was always like the rough and tumble. I wore army fatigues my whole middle school years. When I was 8, actually, I asked my mom if there was a surgery that girls could have to grow up and be boys, because I was still convinced at that point that I was going to grow up to be a boy. When I was 14 at a Grateful Dead The Other Ones tour concert with my dad and my sister and her best friend Rio, who's gay as well, and I came out to my sister. I was 14, and there was a girl behind me that was absolutely adorable, and I couldn't look away. But I had been kind of thinking that I was probably a lesbian for a long time. There was like the girls with spiky hair would walk by, and I'd be like, hello. I came out to my parents when I was 16 because I was dating my sister's best friend, and they yelled at me every night for stealing her best friend. And I didn't know how to tell them I wasn't quite stealing so much as sleeping with and dating and in love with her best friend. So we're in the kitchen, and my parents are, my dad is really angry because I'm now stealing my sister's best friend, and my mom is chopping vegetables. And I told them the night before, I'll tell you in the morning. And so my dad just says, well, why are you such a jerk? And I said, I'm not stealing Cole's best friend, I'm dating her. And there was like a lot of silence, and I would say a full hour and a half later, was probably like 35 seconds or so, my mom looks at my dad and says, is this enough asparagus? To this day, I'm convinced they like my girlfriends more than they like me a lot of times, because my girlfriends tend to be a lot nicer. I'm kind of sarcastic. I think most people are just afraid of disappointing their parents in this, I'm not going to achieve some heterosexual ideal. But when you're 13 or 14 and you just know that you don't fit in, and your parents know that too. My parents were unique in that it was an incredible non-issue, but I think a lot of my friends, a lot of people I've dated have had serious issues with their parents, especially initially when your parents just don't know this about you. Like for me, I mean, I have a double pop collar on. It's a pretty obvious. I walk into a room and everyone's like, if I said I had a boyfriend, they would be shocked. Whereas a lot of people, their parents just don't think that their heads don't go there. My mom cried for a year after I came out, and it wasn't because she was disappointed or she didn't know. It was because she thought my life was going to be a lot harder. And I think parents ultimately are just worried that something's going to happen to you. The urge to protect your children is so huge that of course you just want your child to kind of, be straight and normal and, live this life that they know is going to be a lot easier than walking around on the street with a butch lesbian and being a visual target for everybody who might not be okay with it. I have a few friends right now who are going through this phase with their parents where it's a back and forth. Like, I have one friend who will actually be on the phone with her mom crying, saying, okay, I want to be straight for you. And her mom saying, no, 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 be yourself. We'll never stop loving you. Just don't disappear on us and don't feel like you can't talk to us, even though it's going to be hard for us to hear. And parents, eventually, they just want you to be okay. They just want you to live a life that they've lived. They just want you to have kids and get married and not be discriminated against and not be afraid when you go into a bar. And they don't want to be afraid that you're walking into bars. And so it's going to be really difficult for them. And I think kids are really afraid of coming out to parents because of that. Self-identity is, it's a tricky nut, because I would say that my whole childhood I just felt like a boy. And I think I started dating girls in this way that almost validated that I was a boy. It was just this natural, of course I'm going to date girls, like I'm a boy. And I think later on you realize that they're two separate things. It's like, I feel like a boy, but I'm also sexually attracted to women. And the word lesbian to me, I think of some 50-year-old like bull dyke, and it freaks me out that like, oh God, I'm gonna be that someday, because you know, the stigma around that is not great. It's like the, you know, you stay at home with cats kind of a thing. So I would say I tend not to say, oh, I'm a lesbian, even though, I mean, technically I'm a lesbian. I would say, I even use the word dyke a lot, like, I'm just a big dyke, you know, or butch implies gay. Queer not so much, because I'm like, well, queer is very vague, and a lot of times I'll just say I'm gay.